Download the AllStar app. Make your picks for UFC fights, challenge your friends, level up and win prizes. Link in description. Get it now. So the UFC, well, actually, TKO Holdings Group,
That's
the
right.
parent company of the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
They're involved in a class action lawsuit
Right.
against them
Yep.
Yeah.
by fighters.
Yep.
And Josh Gross, he is a veteran of the MMA media game. He's been doing this since the 2000s. A well-respected guy in the industry. He apparently was in court in Las Vegas during the judge's
The ruling.
ruling, right? And this is what he wrote in his tweet, or X, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I got you.
Judge Boulware did not grant preliminary approval for the UFC class action antitrust settlement today. I was in the courtroom this afternoon. Boulware expressed several areas of concern, and it sure seemed to me that he's leaning toward denying the deal and moving to a jury trial. So, Shay, what do you know about this?
All right. So details, if we're looking at the numbers and why they denied the ruling, the settlement that they reached earlier this year was about $335 million, which sounds like a lot. But then if you look at what they were seeking in damages, it was only a fraction of that. So like the plaintiffs initially sought up to 1.6 billion in damages. So they basically settled for, let's say, about 20% of what the initial amount was. And so that's where the judge expressed concern, because mind you, like this settlement means, and like with however many fighters that were involved in this lawsuit, the money would not compensate the fighters to the extent that he would want to. So basically, they're trying to get the fighters more money out of this, which is why he denied the settlement agreement, and they're gonna rule on it again in about 2 weeks.
$1.6 billion, and they dwindled it down to $335 million.
Right.
That's
That's insane.
nuts, right?
That's insane.
That shows you how much power the UFC has and the type of lawyers that they have.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
some
yeah.
crazy good lawyers if you're like able to.
UFC is owned by TKO, so those guys are probably paying.
Oh,
just
yeah.
crazy. They got a whole department full of lawyers,
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure.
So like when they got this offer, right, or they offered this, and then the fighters, accepted. I heard that this money would have been a tax write-off for the UFC. For
Can you
TKO
imagine?
holdings. $335 million would have been just like a tax write-off. It would have been nothing.
That would have
for
saved them a fuck ton of money.
It would have,
Yeah.
right? So now they're fucking shaking in their pants probably because like this judge, he's probably going against the grain with this.
Oh yeah.
Because other
probably.
judges probably would have been like,
Right, it'd be like,
you know,
sweet, fighters make money now. Like,
Yeah.
we're good to go. Let's go on to the
Yeah.
next case. But then
But
now
he's
they're
really
holding
looking
it.
into it.
Yeah.
Like looking into like, oh, this was 1.6 billion. You guys are accepting 335 million
Right.
payout.
Especially if
There's
both
something wrong with
parties have
this.
already agreed to a settlement.
Yeah, that's
so like
weird.
not running this through
Well,
is
I
very
think
unusual.
I think it's also because he's looking at the fact that a lot of the fighters, I remember them saying that they basically just accepted it because if it went further, it'd be 10 years of their life, and they didn't feel like it would be worth it because they thought that they would probably lose. But if you have a judge that's backing you up and saying, hey, actually the settlement is unfair, suddenly your ability to win does seem much higher.
Yeah.
Especially in front of a jury.
Right. It's like, yeah, if the jury sees that, damn, even the judge thinks this is unfair, then
I mean,
the
100%, right?
Right.
Yeah, what Shay was saying earlier about like the reason why the judge kind of was hesitant or is hesitant about the settlement is because of the gap, right? And I think that this judge is actually probably a real good judge and a judge that could actually help the fighters.
Yeah,
in
he's
this
looking out
case.
for the people.
Yeah,
100%, man.
and man, I think it's gonna be good. It might be a good thing.
Yeah.
For the fighters that are a part of the lawsuit, because not every fighter is part of the lawsuit,
Right.
right? They're all part of. Some of them are part of it, some of them are not. Some of them were part of it, and then they jumped off. It all depends on, like I said, perspective. Like what position.
Yeah,
you're in.
wasn't it like Was it Cerrone?
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
bunch, man. There was a bunch of them. Like all of a sudden, they weren't on part of it.
Yeah.
Because,
A little bit of.
yeah. Next, you know, Cerrone's in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, he
true.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got
He
to the Hall
was,
of
and
Fame.
then someone asked him about fighter pay. He's like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah, you can't have somebody in
He's
the
living
Hall
his
of
best
Fame
life.
being like, yeah, they didn't pay me enough for this. That's
Yeah.
a weird look. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I think they should. If you were the fighter part of this lawsuit, would you be happy about this, or would you be angry? You're probably going to be angry because you already agreed to getting the payout.
True. So that delays the settlement payment,
yeah.
right? So there's that. But like even the figures are so difficult to wrap your head around, I think, as a fighter too. Because like I come from like an accounting and finance background, and I still have to like kind of like think about the numbers in my head to figure out whether it makes sense and why. And like I don't even feel like I'm comfortable enough with how much or how little information I have about it to be like, does this make sense? Is it good or bad for the fighters? So like I can't imagine a pro fighter who like all they know is fighting to look at the numbers and be like, all right, this is unfair. It's like, I don't even know what's fair.
Yeah.
How would they? So it's tough.
I can only imagine you having mixed emotions, right? Because in one way, there has to be a certain amount of relief with the settlement, just thinking like, okay, maybe we didn't win, but we won something.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't a complete like, you know, we fought this giant and we didn't get completely maimed.
Right.
You know, so there had to be a sense of like, okay, this is okay. And now, okay, no, now my life is still the settlement. Now my life is still wrapped around going on court dates and like pushing this out for how long, you know?
Yeah.
And with TKO Holdings having the kind of lawyers that they do and everything, this will take forever.
Yeah, and it establishes really good legal precedent going into the future if we run into a similar issue with like underpaid fighters where they can cite this case and be like, here's how this turned out. So use that to affect what you think about this new lawsuit that theoretically.
the hope would be that there would start being unions, there would start being better healthcare, better this, better that. And like maybe the UFC actually starts considering their fighters like employees instead of, what is it that they always
Contractors.
contractors? Yeah. Yeah.
Independent
Contractors. That's always the term that they use, right?
Yeah.
You know, the judge also said that he acknowledged that there was a lack of wrongdoing on behalf of the legal counsel representing the fighters. Because think about it, like I think the lawyers that are representing the fighters, it's difficult to say, but I don't think the fighters are paying them to take this case. It must be, you know, the situation where they get a percentage of whatever the payout is. Right?
okay.
Because they'll pretty much do this pro bono.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we win, you know, there's a lot of those lawyers, right? If we
Yeah.
win, you give me 60% or 50% of the payout, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And to get the type of lawyers to hop on board, to fight the lawyers that they have, you need to get some like really high level guys that are gonna
Yeah.
probably want a high percentage of
Right.
the
They
payout.
wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do it pro bono.
No, they would never want to do it pro bono. And I think when the judge is saying that there was there's some issues right there, it says a lot, man. And there's not only just one class action suit. There's like the one for Kung Lee, and then there's another one for Cage and Johnson, right?
Yeah.
But if you have that, you're gonna have more. Eventually, it will come, right?
For sure.
I mean, it's like, it's that thing, right? Where, you know, once one person is like caught with something and someone comes out, then another person feels strong enough to come out, then another person.
Yeah.
You know, people just come out of the woodwork because sometimes they just feel like, okay, well, nothing will change if I say anything.
Right.
But then,
Yeah. The amount of people who can be like, oh, I can push a lawsuit forward about this.
Yeah.
It's probably kind of like what you'll see going down the line.
Well, you know, the UFC is the UFC. They're gonna have all the power.
yeah.
And it's not going to really change much going into the future. It's just how you as an individual, as a fighter, how you play the game in that arena. And if you can play the game well, then you can succeed. And it's not all about being the best fighter in the world anymore. It's not. It's that those days are over.
Yeah.
Like the best fighters in the world are probably not even signed to the UFC.
Right.
Some of them.
True.
Because they're sitting in Dagestan somewhere
Yeah.
training, but nobody wants to fight them. And then they end up just retiring because they're just
Right.
frustrated.
It's like they
with-
can beat someone's ass, but like say they'll never get a visa for whatever reason.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables, right? Outside of just fighting and training.
Right.
That can, derail. Look at Hamzat. Like right now, we're watching maybe the downfall. Not even a downfall. It's just like it's hard to, just like kind of the stunted growth of a career.
Yeah.
It's pretty much over, right?
Right.
Because of things that are outside of fighting. But hopefully, they get a good lawsuit and they get money, man.
Yeah.
I feel like they deserve it, and they should be paid.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, it does set precedent for the future, and help fighters in the future, and help fighters, even in the past, man. Hopefully, because we're gonna start seeing a lot of fighters come with those long-lasting. I don't even know what to call it.
Just damages, man.
Damage, yeah. Just
Yeah,
damage,
it's like-
dude.
Right.
Like you're starting to see some fighters now. You're like, fuck, dude. You could see it in them.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. You can
And,
see it.
yeah.
You can see the shakes or the CTE or the
Yeah.
just the
Just mumbling.
Yeah.
and,
Punch drunk, like the
yeah,
incoherent,
yeah.
like it's
And the fighters know that could be a possibility. They don't do that because they're oblivious to it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would love to see the fighters be compensated for taking that risk.
Yeah.
With their health and everything, man.
Absolutely.